Hi, Dr. Kristen Desimone, Student Affairs Dean here at Sidney Kimmel Medical College. Welcome to our St. George students. And I'm here with Michael Esterlis, who is soon to be graduating from St. George's. He is matched in Canada for anesthesiology and is going to answer some very specific questions about going through the Canadian residency process. So thank you for joining me, Michael. So to begin, I guess is probably the most important is I think the exams. There are specific Canadian exams, which you'll know much more than I will, but really the recommended timeline for when to write the MCCQE1 and the NAC OSCE.
Okay.
And how to prepare for those.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Overview, things are changing, so keep that in mind when you kind of Google stuff. I wrote the MCCEE, the Medical Council of Canada Evaluating Exam, which is being phased out in 2018. That means you probably won't be writing it. You'll be writing the QE1, which I'll be writing November when I'm starting my residency this year. So we'll talk about how to prepare for that. Then it used to be that you had to take the EE by a certain date before you can register for the NAC OSCE. They changed that, so now you can kind of take the NAC OSCE without. Let me focus you. So when you're in your third year, this is probably the best time to be studying for those exams. The QE1 is probably similar to Step 2, which is probably similar to the EE that I wrote. I actually scored quite well in the EE and I scored well on Step 2, and I'll tell you how I did study for both at the same time. I use Toronto Notes for everything. I even use it now in my fourth year. I mean, it's a medicine book and it covers everything. I use it with my shelf exams here. I used it with the course material they provided us. Basically, I used it for Step 2 and with UWorld. And it worked out. I mean, I scored 265 on Step 2. I scored 408 on the EE, which is like 99.7 percentile. Use the same resource for everything. My recommendation is take the whole year to study. Really, it's just you reading the Toronto Notes, buy the physical copy and annotate it, and you'll have all the information you need to answer your exam questions. And Jefferson will prepare you really well for Step 2 and for I'm sure for the QE1 as well. In terms of specific question banks, the only one that's really available, and it's not that great for Canada specifically, is the Canada Q Bank. Just Google it, you'll find it. There is a specific one for QE1. But honestly, it's the same material, and do UWorld, and you'll see that your mind starts working and answering these questions correctly. So don't stress too much about the exams. The NAC OSCE, it's a whole different beast than the CS exam here. I would study differently for those. Try to schedule them probably at least a month apart so you can kind of switch gears and study for those OSCE separately. I'm not going to touch about the CS too much. You'll get all the information how to study for it when you're here. For the NAC OSCE, I'll be completely honest, it's identical to Georgia's. All the physical exams and communication skills, know your counseling code, know how to treat common family medicine situations and emergency situations. I mean, the OSCE we did now in F year was very similar to the NAC OSCE. So what I'm going to suggest is prepare for your OSCEs at Georgia's. Take this OSCE seriously because I didn't score as well as I wanted to. Thankfully, I still matched, but some programs, especially family medicines, have cutoffs for the NAC OSCE score. So that's an important exam to do well on. Really, it covers emergency situations, so know how to recognize medical emergencies and how to treat them. Common family medicine problems, women's health, pediatrics, and I guess surgical complaints. But you'll be ready for it. You probably will take it around, I would say, the summer of your third year, so you can have that score and your QE1 score by the time when you apply around October, November of fourth year for Canadian residencies.
Okay.
That's generally the advice I have for those exams.
So just to reiterate some of the OSCEs, you'll take an OSCE here at Jefferson at the end of your third year or April of your third year. Then you'll roll into your end of P year OSCE from St. George's that you'll have in July, followed by, it sounds like, your NAC OSCE.
Yeah.
Also, we'll have you take your clinical skills exam. There's a lot of overlap with these, and then
Yeah.
ultimately you'll have an end of F year OSCE that these students just took yesterday, Monday to
Yeah.
finish that up. So lots of OSCEs. Great.
Yeah, and just to touch on the NAC OSCE again, as you mentioned, you'll have quite a bit of prep because you'll have the George's OSCE in third year or P year. You're going to have the CS, which again, it's useful to run your mind through differentials, recognizing problems. And why I mentioned the NAC OSCE is similar, even though I'm not allowed to divulge details of this exam, I can tell you that it's similar in structure where the examiner will stop you at X minutes, ask you how to work up the problem, give you a sheet of paper with information, ask you to interpret it. So it's very similar to George's. You'll be trained well to do well on it.
So then, moving into fourth year, to try to match into the Canadian match system,
Yeah.
rotating in Canada is often part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
At least in my experience, even with students here at Jefferson who are Canadian who would like to match in Canada. So let's talk a little bit about scheduling away rotation,
Sure.
how that went about, how you went through that, and then how you think that helped, if it helped.
Sure. One thing I wanted to touch on before we do that is Canadian students at Jefferson and Canadian students who are at St. George's are in two different pools. When you are enrolled in an LCME accredited school, you are competing with CMGs or Canadian graduates in the different R system when you apply, versus IMGs compete with IMGs. They're separate pools, meaning that Canadians at Jefferson don't have to take the NAC OSCE and they don't have to take the QE1 before they apply. All they need is their transcript of medical school, versus IMGs outside of an LCME accredited school have to take the exams, and they essentially they compete with each other. So when touching about away rotations, I think they're important for both pools, but especially for IMGs, you need this Canadian experience. I think the likelihood of you applying without a Canadian rotation and being offered an interview is probably not likely. So you will have, St. George has been incredible with working with Jefferson and scheduling your SSC and elective time in, I would say, August, September, which is when you should be finding away rotations in Canada. The way you get away rotations in Canada is you apply through this thing called the AFMC portal, student portal. You can Google it. It's a centralized system. It's very frowned upon to try to get an away rotation outside of this portal, and for this reason this portal was implemented a few years back, and trust me, I've tried it, you're not going to get an away rotation without this portal. Here's the problem for IMGs. We are blacked out on key dates, specifically September to November.
Oh.
So
August it is.
yeah, well, even August sometimes. So here's I did 2 weeks of NOSM, which is the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. The key is you want Canadian letters for the Canadian application. Your US letters won't go as far as Canadian letters will. You need to get those rotations. Maybe once you get here, you can figure out a way to maybe go off cycle and maybe get a rotation in third year. I don't know if that's possible, but you need to get a rotation in some capacity if you want to go to Canada. You will run into the AFMC portal issues. McMaster is a lottery system, so are some other schools, and I know some people in the UK have run into this issue. I have as well. This is why I want to mention, in your second year, in your T-year, get observerships. Pay the money, spend a week of just shadowing. Make those connections, because in Canada, because those connections can potentially help you secure a rotation. I'll give you a personal example. I applied to the University of Toronto through Jefferson, not through St. George's, and thankfully they allowed that and let me rotate in September. So I don't want to call it a loophole, because it's not. They specifically allowed that, but I know that the person who I rotated with really helped me secure that. So you kind of need to be familiar with the specific Canadian rules, but be prepared to run into a lot of administrative challenges.
Now, how did you go about with observership? Like, how can you
Yeah, so you
secure
just
that? You just call, make contact and ask someone?
online, yeah. So
Online.
you kind of so having known a preceptor or trying to really work whatever connections you have, can you introduce me to this person, maybe in family medicine, and anesthesiology, dermatology, whatever you want to apply to. Make sure or try to see if you have anyone that you have a connection. But if you don't, that's okay. Cold calling or sending emails doesn't hurt. Just express interest. Maybe people will be willing to have you shadow for a week. But that is not absolutely necessary. You can just go on the hospital website, Google observership X hospital, fill out an application form. There'll probably going to be a small fee, and they may even just partner you with a random person. It's better than doing nothing.
And what are the fees involved?
Maybe $100, $200
Okay, for 1 week.
for a week. Yeah.
For 1 week. And when would this be happening?
I did 1 week. I did a 1 week observership in the summer of my T year before coming here for my P year, and
Okay.
that observership introduced me to some mutual connections or multiple connections that I kept in touch with throughout my P year, and some of these people actually helped me get a rotation at University of Toronto. They helped me with letters. And I got 2 letters from the University of Toronto, one from the NOSM, which I just applied through the AFMC portal, and it worked out. But just be prepared for some administrative
So that's a great
issues.
advice. So you'll take your step 1 exam early July, and so you will have a few weeks,
Yeah.
which of course I'm sure would love to travel, but you might think about squeezing in a week of an observership or 2 if you're thinking about going to Canada.
That brought
So-
a funny flashback. I remember when I did my observership, and my preceptor was like, "Oh, we have this patient with like some rare condition. I forget what it was," and I mentioned, "Oh, is this type X?" And she's like, "Oh, how did you know that?" I'm like, "I just took step 1." All the minutia actually came into.
Right and handy, right?
Yeah.
That's good. And then I guess other questions specifically, are there, in terms of applying for the Canadian match, any unexpected difficulties in the match process that we can advise or avoid?
I applied to me actually ranking Canada came back last minute when I made some personal life decisions. I'm getting married and my family, and kind of thinking Canada is where I want to go train. I was, for all intents and purposes, prepared to match here. I had some really great programs that would have been my dream to be here, but Canada is really great, and I'm absolutely thrilled to go back. So I didn't take the match process with so much anxiety as I guess some people would, who are absolutely, I have to match in Canada, that's an end all. So my advice is, you're going to run into difficulties, dual apply if you can. I absolutely advise it. Don't plan on going back that you will 100% match there. Dual apply and take both systems very seriously. Difficulties, as I mentioned, the rotations were tough. Getting those rotations. The exams you'll be prepared for. Letters you will get. Interviews are... So after you interview at like 16 places here, it's just another interview. So I didn't even prepare as much for my Canadian interview. And the questions keep repeating themselves in different interviews, so you'll be prepared. Go to as many as you can. I applied to 4 anesthesiology programs in Canada, was offered 2 interviews. One of which I think was because I met with a program director the summer before. Just went to her office to talk about the program. And again, this is kind of a similar thing that I mentioned about the US, is have people be able to tie your name to your face, have a conversation. It helps.
Mm-hmm. Always.
And Canadian connections are, unfortunately, that's how the world works. It's powerful everywhere, but especially in Canada.
So looking at the rest of these questions, balancing step 2 with the Canadian exams, you've mentioned it's a lot of overlap with the material, so nothing out of the ordinary there. Any last words of advice on those students who are thinking about the Canadian match?
Yes. I don't know, it's a very kind of useless advice, but have a resident mentor if you can. I knew a resident there
In Canada
who actually happened to be an IMG. So he went through the process, and him and I met for drinks whenever I came home, and we talked, and he kind of always advised me about the next step. And if you don't know about the next step, it's very hard to navigate the system. Even kind of step away, even if you're Canadian but trying to come here, unless someone told me about the statement of need that I need to get permission from Canada for a J1 visa here, you need to know these things ahead. I'm happy if someone wants to email me in the future about questions. I'm happy to be that person, but if I'm not in your specialty, there's only so much general advice I can give you before you need the specific advice for your specific specialty. And as true as it is here in the States, it's true in Canada as well. So just try to enter your field in whatever capacity it is and meet people, get involved in research, show your interest. And if you know a resident who's gone through the process and matched, and they can kind of generally guide you, it will be really helpful.
Do you know much about the statement of need or not at all?
I do.
A little bit. So Lorena, in our previous discussion, who is also here from St. George's, is Canadian, has matched in the University of Washington in the United States. But there is something called a statement of need, which you may need if you want to be here in the United States for residency, that Michael did not need, but Lorena did need. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the statement of need and how that does play into outcomes?
Sure. The statement of need is essentially permission from the government, Canadian government, for you to come to the United States to train. And basically, it's a first come, first serve permission. That means that, for example, the amount of those permissions or statement of needs, you can Google it, it's through the Ministry of Health, changes year to year. For example, this year for anesthesiology, there are 25 statement of needs, whereas in family medicine, there might have been over 300 or whatever the amount is. Next year, they increase the statement of need because that means that they need less anesthesiologists in Canada. Therefore, they allow more people to come and train in Canada. Or maybe the other way around, that they anticipate a need in 5 years, so they allow more people to come to train here. I don't know how they figure out the numbers. Not important. At 12 p.m., 1 p.m. for us, when the NRMP releases where you matched, assuming you matched here, you need to send a package that includes a notarized copy of your passport, some application form filled out, and a screenshot of this NRMP page saying, Michael matched at X. And you need to send that to an email address in Canada. Imagine that everyone, essentially, I guess, in the world, or sends that email address, this whole package at the same time. So really, the statement of needs run out at 1 p.m. and 1 minute or 1 p.m. and 30 seconds on the dot. So you need to have all the documents ready. You need to be able to take a fast screenshot, drag it to your email inbox, and off you send. So I actually had my top 6 programs packages prepared ahead of time. So all I needed to do is just get a screenshot, drag it to the appropriate email, and click send, have everything ready. Unfortunately, I know Lorena had an issue with a statement of need. I was more worried about getting that statement of need than about matching. So, and that was one of my reasons about the whole visa headache. I just decided I'm going to go to Canada and not deal with it. Unfortunately, that's an issue we have to deal with.
So being prepared, though, ahead of time makes a huge difference.
But don't let it discourage you.
Yeah.
People get them all the time, so it's fine.
Any final words of advice?
Email me if you have any questions. And it's really, it's a customized, tailored plan. As you're an advisor, you know that there's no one size fits all. It's a customized plan for every person, and coming here will really help you.
And then your email address for them is?
Yeah, it's my last name, esterlis@gmail.com.
Perfect. All right, we'll have that for you as well. Great. All right, thank you so much for your time. Good luck.